Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, what? I'm not moving for another month, and I've been replaced already?
No, don't worry, Steve. I'm not replacing you. I used to work with Dave back when I was a college professor, and I thought I'd invite him in. He is a doctor of psychology. Hello, everyone, and greetings once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast. We're actually two guys and a doctor talking about records today.
I'm a guy, too.
Yes, you are. We're inviting Dave in. I've known Dave for quite a few years, and kind of a unique perspective. Over the past several episodes, Steve and I have been kind of going into this bit of a quandary about how we collect and why we collect so much that we do. And you stopped into the store a couple of weeks back, and we got into a conversation about that, and I thought, hey, let's invite Dave in just to kind of give us this other perspective other than just two guys talking about records, why we collect. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. We'll give you your particulars and get into things. I want to say, too, that you are a record collector as well.
I am, long time.
This isn't going to create any bias, isn't it?
No, I'm one of you.
There we go. But before we do that, as this is a vinyl community podcast, each week we like to talk about our recent pickups, and this week should be no different. How'd it go this week for you, Steve?
Radio Wasteland costs a lot of money. And, that's the best thing about moving to Denver is Jim won't be there to tempt me unless he starts sending me stuff on my Facebook page.
I'll give you VIP access to the drop videos.
That's right. But I did get a few things that I've been trying to get back into my collection that I didn't have. One was Baskind. I did have this. I saved my vinyl from the flood, but I had a half-speed, but you had a half-speed master of it from 1980. Yep. And so the vinyl I had was from a record store day. It goes for a lot of money, this blue vinyl, but I don't have the cover. I had an old beat-up cover, so this was really cool to get. Another one, Kansas Point of No Return. I'd yet to bring that back into my collection. Generally a cheap album, but you had a half-speed master. So why spend less when I can spend more? That's my theory in life.
Yep.
I asked my wife. So it was from 1980, so let's shell out some more bucks and get that. Sounds great, though.
Both of the half-speed masters sound really nice.
Yes, both the half-speed masters sound nice. Then there was Steely Dan's Aja. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay, AJA, whatever. Aja. Now, you can find that one kind of cheap, too, unless you happen to walk in. Your record store has a MoFi of it from 1980. I don't know what 1980 was, but those are all three from 1980. So, let's just buy that one. Sounded wonderful.
The key when you get MoFi or half-speed masters is that vinyl has to be pristine. Otherwise, it really defeats the purpose of that audio file.
Unless you're getting old and your hearing's not as well. And so, I have no...
And
if I can just take out my hearing aid and it all will sound just perfect to me. So that's the great thing about age. It doesn't bother you. And the final one I got in through the mail that was a lot cheaper than those three was a Rockin' Dupsy and the Cajun Twisters. Okay. And it's called Big Bad Zydeco. He put out a lot of albums. And I know I talked about one of them I brought back in a few weeks ago. But almost all his albums were done in Europe, in the UK. Now, this guy is from Louisiana, but they weren't putting out his records in the U.S. So I'm looking at his catalog, and everything's out of the UK. I can't find anybody selling them in the U.S., but I finally found this one that was done in the U.S.
You got to travel far to get what you need here.
Yeah, so I was really excited because he's one of my favorite Zydeco artists, and I'm really excited to get that. So that's what I got.
Before we get any further on this, I want to remind everybody that we're talking about these records and encouraging you to listen to some of these, but we can't include the audio clips because of the copyright. So we will be adding in, as we have been doing the past several weeks, a Spotify playlist so you can get a sample of some of the songs that we're talking about. And after you're done listening, of course, you can head over to Spotify, click on that playlist and listen to some of these things. But I think most everybody's going to know what Steely Dan and Kansas and Boston sound like.
Pretty sure they got a good feeling on that, but maybe, I don't know if you even can find a Rockin' Dupsy out there. But
we'll look for that on Spotify. Before I get into my list, though, Dave, as you're our guest, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about your recent or fairly recent pickups?
Yeah, this has kind of been my Billy Joel month. For starters, I was really excited that he released his first new single in forever. On my birthday, he dropped it, which is great. And it sounds wonderful. It's a really good song. And earlier in the week, I picked up tickets to see him in Cleveland in the fall. So I'm looking very forward to that. And one of my more recent album purchases was 52nd Street, one of his great albums, also from 1980s, since that seems to be the magical year, or somewhere right around there, give or take a year.
I hope Jim doesn't screw that up.
And it's the one with My Life and Big Shot and Honesty and Zanzibar, and it sounds wonderful.
Well, cool.
Great album.
Cool. I had a light week this week, but there's some interesting ones. Funny you should mention Billy Joel. One of the things I added to my collection was a 52nd Street also.
1980.
This one is a 78 press, though.
Oh.
So I did ruin it. Sorry about that. But this is a promotional pressing, a white label promo, which is one of the things that I kind of like. One of the niches that I like to bring into my collection when I can are these white label promos. The vinyl is great. The labels are great. The cover, not so much. It's been a radio station copy for many, many years. It's taped up. It's written on. The timing sheet has all these notes: play, don't play, this is cool, this sucks, all over it. So, but I think that adds some character to it because I have so many of these other white label promos and the ones with timing strips. So that was kind of a cool find, and I brought that in as well. Then, Steve, don't laugh at me. Warning right now. I got another new They Might Be Giants album in.
Excellent.
I'm working on this completist.
Yep.
I won't laugh.
Thank you. This one is called The Escape Team, and I believe it's a 2019 little known one. I was very, very unfamiliar with it. I saw that available from one of our distributors, and it's a colored vinyl like I'm in. So I picked it up, gave it a listen, and like so many other They Might Be Giants albums, it's over like that because the songs are all 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And, you're looking at maybe 10, 11 songs in the whole thing, but it's still TMBG and they're just a fun group. They're fun to listen to. So Escape Team by They Might Be Giants. Yes, I'm a sucker. I added that in there. And I'm edging closer to that idea of being a completist with They Might Be Giants.
Let's just be done with it. Just swallow the bullet there. You're a completist.
Let it happen.
Yes.
Then the last one in the collection, and this is, I'm going to call this is there such a thing as a temporary addition to my collection?
I guess. Yeah, for you there is.
Well, yeah, because if I don't like it, I can put it out. But this one, my son, James the Younger, he's in the Air Force. He sent me a note saying that he wanted to get the soundtrack to the movie Bullet Train. And this is a Brad Pitt film from, a couple of years back, I think. The album's from 2023. I think the film's a little older. And it's just kind of a fun little romp. He said Music on Vinyl's coming out with one because he watches this. He's got a burgeoning record collection. But being that he's stationed in Texas, he doesn't keep it with him. It's still for us. He said, pick it up. You can open it up and listen to it. And then in a couple of years when I'm done and I want them, I'll get it back. So I did, and I'll be darned, this is a fun soundtrack.
Really?
It's the movie, if you're unfamiliar with it, I think I talked about this with you, is just an action-packed comedy-ish romp, but a little on the ultra-violent side. Very Japanese, almost manga-ish or anime-ish type of stuff, but it's live action, obviously. But some of the music on here, the creators of this soundtrack and the movie, I would imagine, have found a way to do a Japanese language version of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, done by someone named Avu Chan or Queen Bee, followed immediately by a song called Power by Sick Brain featuring Pussy Riot, then followed immediately up after that with an Engelbert Humperdinck song, I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles. And God help me, it works.
No kidding, because as soon as you said Engelbert Humperdinck, I was like, I'll scratch that one.
It goes, it's just kind of a neat, it fits with the movie. If you've seen the movie, you understand. They do a Japanese language version of Holding Out for a Hero as well on there, and not a Japanese language version of Rare Earths, I Just Want to Celebrate. So it's a fun record. Music on Vinyl put them out in two different colors, a tangerine and a lemon, which again is a reference to the movie if you've seen it. It's one of those things, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a a temporary addition to the collection, and I'll play it in here until he wants it back. And I have a copy to sell, so we'll get rid of that eventually, and maybe I'll get another one for me when that one goes. We'll have to see. We're collecting oddities, as always.
Yeah.
Now, there is one piece of news that will lead directly into our discussion today with Dave talking about why we collect, not just necessarily you and I, but the proverbial we, man, all of us out there, why we collect, the royal we. There was a news item that dropped, and I think I've seen this posted in a couple of other places, but I did get a notification through our distributor about another Dark Side of the Moon. I know just last week we talked about Dark Side of the Moon, and I have made a decision on that, by the way. I am going to keep the Japanese version, and I'm going to put the UK repress out on the shelf. For those of you who go back a week, you'll understand on that, but the dilemma we faced. But just announced this past week, Pink Floyd and who's this coming? It's coming from Pink Floyd Records. That's right. I forgot they're their own label on this. Okay. They're going to do another 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon. This is the 2023 remastered version, so it still kind of folds into that 50th. But here's the thing, how many Dark Sides can one person want or own? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be difficult to find a way. I have got a picture disc. It's a non-playable one. It's a piece of junk. I've got the reissue. I've got the Japanese one now. I've got my original. And, I've got the live version of it too. So what can they do to entice us poor suckers into buying yet another copy of Dark Side of the Moon?
Yeah. Japanese version?
No, but how about a clear vinyl, and I'm using air quotes, you can't see this, picture disc. Now this is, they went through great lengths in my description to say that it's not really a picture disc, but it is a picture disc, but it's not a picture disc. So what this is, I have to read the description to you. It's the 50th anniversary. They've split it up into 2 LPs, so it's going to be much more expensive. But this new edition will feature the Prism Spectrum artwork seen through the playable side of the vinyl, while maintaining the best quality sound that fans will come to expect with this release. So this is the first time that Pink Floyd has used this new pioneering technology process called UV printing for a picture disc. So that means the images are printed with a high-end UV or ultraviolet printer. LED light dries as permanent ink. I had to look this up. The UV printing process, according to Google, says that it is a distinctive form of digital printing that involves the use of ultraviolet light to cure or dry the UV ink almost instantly as soon as it's applied to a prepared substrate. So, i.e., they're printing on this vinyl and it's drying almost immediately so that there's no effect that goes into the degradation of the image, so to speak. And then it just goes, they go through the regular printing process. Now, this is interesting because most, even, original or older picture discs and new current ones are essentially a playable piece of vinyl. And you will have some purists that say, oh, it's a picture disc, the sound quality is horrible, don't get picture discs, they're for display or collectability only. They are billing this one as a playable audiophile style picture disc because the printing takes place on the opposite side of the clear vinyl as shown through the playable side. The result is a single-sided picture disc, meaning that this single album is now 2 LPs that you have to move and play. But the imagery, the slick images that we're getting ahead of time, they look pretty damn cool. So it's clear vinyl with the prism underneath.
This morning at breakfast, as I was sitting there, I either could sit there and talk with my wife or listen to Radio Wasteland's new video drop, so I went with the last part. And I'm looking at that, and you said Pink Floyd. I go, oh, God, here we go, another Pink Floyd. And then you showed it. And I looked at this packaging, and I go, oh, man, that's cool. Oh, I don't need this, but that's cool. So then I show it to my wife, who has no interest in records. Says, look at this. With that excitement that she has zero about. And she goes, well, that is cool.
Well.
Wow, yeah.
That's a green light.
Exactly. And when you said the amount, she didn't go, well, that's not so cool anymore. And she didn't say anything. So I absolutely don't need this, but they keep coming up with a way. I mean, it's just, put the bait on the hook and throw it out there because they know they're going to sell thousands of them.
And the thing is, too, it's not a slouch in the price department. The 50th anniversary reissue on black vinyl rides at about $32. This one, because it is a double LP, and maybe it's the technology process, I've got one distributor that shows it at $52. The other one's showing it at $57. So I'm guessing it's right in that neighborhood, 53-ish in through there. But still, it's an over $50 album for an over 50-year-old album.
So they've now found a way to take a single 33 RPM. Instead of going 2 albums at 45 RPM, we now found a way that we can make them into a 2-album set, still at 33 RPM. Really no change.
The only thing that I would think would be problematic with this is that you have to be absolutely sure which is the playable side. Yeah. you don't want to drop the needle on something else and have it, wreck your needle and the other side of this vinyl. But I'll admit it looks pretty cool. And my first thought was, I don't need one of these, but now I'm in the same boat as you. So,
I know.
Damn it.
Exactly.
Damn it, Pink Floyd. You did it to us again. This reminds me, there was you remember the old movie Men in Black, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where he first meets up, Will Smith first meets up with the Jones, and he picks up this itty bitty disc and says, this is the next new thing in music. I guess I'll have to buy the White Album all over again. So that's where we get. So do we need another Pink Floyd copy of Dark Side of the Moon? Why do we do this? And this is where we're going to defer to our guest today, Dave Baskind. Dr. Dave Baskind, you are a professor of psychology and have been teaching in this vein for almost 30 years now.
At Delta, yeah.
At Delta. So This is... You're also a record collector, and you have worked at a record store.
Multiple record stores.
So you're kind of coming into this with a wider range of experience than the two goofs right here, saying, I like music, I'm going to buy Pink Floyd again. The biggest question I think that we always get is, and I get this from new people coming in, that begin collecting, whether they're in their 20s, their 30s, and in some cases 40s and 50s, people are coming back to it. Why is it that in this instance alone, we're all vinyl lovers, we're record collectors, but the bigger question is, why do we as a species like to gather and collect things?
So my take on it, I've researched this a little bit, and I speak from personal experience too. So as I see it, it all starts with a love of it, almost always. We're passionate about music, we listen to music, and it's been a part of our lives. And so we like listening to it. When we were kids, if you wanted to hear your favorite song, you had 2 options. You either waited for it to come on the radio, or you had to purchase it. These days, you've got many other options. Yep. They may not sound as good, but you have a lot of options. So at least for me, when I started collecting, it was just because, I love this album, and wow, I wonder what else they have out. And one of my favorite bands, they're still around today, are Squeeze. They're coming up on their 50th anniversary. They're going to be touring a bit and putting out some albums. And I became a fan of them, and especially their greatest hits album, singles 45s and under, in the 1980s when I was going to college. And I'm like, I love all these songs. So maybe I should purchase one of the original albums that it came from. And I got that. I'm like, that's really good. Maybe I should get another one. Maybe I should get another one. Until I had everything that they had put out and the new albums they were continuing to put out. And so I've continued moving forward with just having all the music by them. But, it almost always begins with a love of it. I used to collect baseball cards a long time ago. Yeah. For other people, it's stamps, it's dolls.
I had stamps.
I used to collect coins a little bit when I was a kid. And there's something to be said for wanting them all or wanting a complete set of something. There's that sense of satisfaction knowing that you have all the They Might Be Giants albums.
Because it's something that not everybody would have or go for in this instance.
Helps you to stand out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. You said greatest hits. I started when I first began collecting. I got into Columbia Record Club. I didn't know anything about groups, so I just went greatest hits, greatest hits, greatest hits.
Right.
That's all I brought in, and it introduced me. And then you started to buy these other albums. You really got into the groups, and it just took you forward and started your journey.
Right. Yeah, I used to belong to Columbia House and BMG back in the day. Those were fun times. And you're right. It's a great introduction to it. Because again, back then all we had was listening to the radio, or you'd have to go out and purchase something. Greatest hits were always a great place to start. And then if you liked particular song or two on that greatest hits, then you might go back and get that album and then see if you like more of the stuff on there. And if so, maybe you want to fill in some more from the original greatest hits that you had.
Several episodes ago, Steve and I talked about, what kind of a collector are you? And Steve, maybe you can share more on this. You said when you first started, once you got through the college and the Columbia House, you bought everything you could. Anything you saw, you bought.
Yeah, my whole purpose, I wanted to have the world's biggest record collection. That was my thought. I later learned Elton John had me beat by several 100,000, if not more than that. So there's a guy in Canada I know, Daryl. His collection. It's in L.A. and in Canada. It's so big, you know. So. Okay, I wasn't going to get that, but it really was this passion. I want these records. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about quality or something. It's just dollar bins. Oh, I don't know this group. I don't know this. And I would bring them in. I mean, like you could get a box. I would just go in and spend a day in a store. And so I had all this music. I listened to every album maybe once. Unless you really liked it twice, right. Because you get so many. And, I was up to, between CDs and albums, 12,000.
Wow.
And, thank God the flood wiped it out, so I don't have to move it now. I mean, God bless America. or natural disasters aren't bad after all.
I had a customer send me a picture just the other day, which was kind of fortuitous given the subject we're talking about. I don't know if he knew we were doing this. He just happened to. And the T-shirt says it's not hoarding if it's vinyl. So,
right.
How do we make that distinction? I mean, Steve at one point wanted to collect as much as he could. And at one point in my life, too, I was in that way, too, albeit for different reasons. I was trying to bring in 12-inch singles, enough music to have at least a copy of as much stuff as I could. When I moved, I downsized, as we talked about last week. But where and how does the human psyche begin to draw the line to say enough's enough?
Have we reached that point? For some people, yes. For some people, no. And I was starting by talking about the love of it. That's where it almost always begins. But that's not true for everyone. For some people, they do collect strictly for financial reasons or for historical purposes. They want to collect this to feel more in touch with history. But I kind of prefer the love of it. That's where mine came from, and I think that's probably more common. So in terms of hoarding is similar because you've got a whole lot of stuff, but there definitely are some differences there. For one, when people are hoarding, it often causes them some distress. They're upset about it. They're upset if they lose something. They feel more of a need as opposed to a love for something.
Interesting.
So it's kind of an interesting distinction. And also for hoarders, tends to be a mess. For collectors, oftentimes they are very organized. Yeah. They want to keep things in pristine, neat, organized condition rather than let's just stack this up anywhere. So I don't know about you two. My collections are pretty well organized, alphabetical. You look around most record stores and it's not just that albums have been thrown anywhere. You have different sections and they're, it makes it easy for people to find what they're looking for. So they often, collectors often keep their objects neatly organized and stored. Set completion is considered a key motivation in the psychology of many collectors because they do want to have all of whatever it is that they're interested in, whether it's, dolls from a certain era or guns from a certain thing or every piece of memorabilia from a particular movie. Over the holiday break, when I was in Cleveland, I went to the Christmas Story house in Cleveland. And in some ways, that kind of acts like a de facto museum and a collection for a lot of memorabilia there. So for some people, that's what they want to be complete about, is having everything associated with a particular artist or era or things like that.
Well, in this case, too, they could open that up to the public and share this love with others.
Yes.
Well, maybe they don't. Maybe some people that love that movie don't have the means or the wherewithal to gather up as much as they can, but this person did, and I'm going to share that with everyone.
Right, and so there becomes a community. So this is why you're doing the podcast, and for a lot of people, they like connecting with others who have a similar passion. Or you've got Comic-Con, or so many other kinds of conventions like that, where people like getting together in person or via the web to find out, there's others who share the same passion that I have. And, can I get that from you? And where did you find that? And just being able to communicate that love with others who share that love is a big thing for a lot of people in the collecting community.
And that is the vinyl community, is it not, Steve?
It is. When I was growing up, none of my friends were into music. None of them collected music. This was a totally solo thing. Into the 80s, there was a guy I worked with that was into some music, got me introduced into punk rock and stuff, and I began to like that. But for the most part, my journey has been a solo journey until we enter this world of mass media, of all the, the different ways that we can connect with people. And you find out there's all these record collectors and many right by you that I would not have known about. And it brought extra excitement. It also cost me a whole lot more money. Excitement costs money. I guess excitement's not cheap. You want a ride, you're going to pay for that ride. But they share and they go, wow, this is great. And you listen to go, oh, that is good. I really would like to get this. I mean, you got to live within your means. My wife will kind of say, yes, you ought to listen to what you're saying. But it introduced me to a whole, brand new set of collectors. And the vinyl community, that's what it's all about, and which is really what I enjoy about it.
Yeah, and so when I started my record collection, I had one of my best friends still. He also had quite a few albums, and we both transitioned to CDs at some point. And then I kept a lot of the albums. He got rid of many of his, if not all of them, long ago. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of them just kind of sitting dormant in the basement, neatly organized, sealed up tightly, protected, that I just kept moving with me until maybe the past 10 years or so, 15 years, where it seems like there's been a resurgence in popularity of vinyl. And it's kind of gotten me much more excited about it and being able to talk about it and going to record stores again. Like, I'm kind of feeling a little connection with like the 15-year-old version of myself now. Like, ooh, look at that. I've got that new Billy Joel album again. And okay, yes, I've had it in other forms, and yes, I can listen to it on Spotify whenever I desire, but like having that tangible object, it's something that still brings me joy and some excitement.
Well, it's just the memories. You put on a song, when you think of something like that Squeeze album, suddenly you remember where you were at, what you were doing when you heard this. And that's what I find so exciting about some of this music is it's just these memories flood back to you, and it makes you feel good. Even a bad memory can become something special because you hear this and you think about this and maybe how you overcome whatever it was. And it's just that power of music. Now, I guess other collections can do that, but music is so special when it comes to that because they're saying something to you and you feel like, hey, I get what they're saying here.
Yeah, and for a lot of collectors, it is just that thrill of getting more to add to the collection, whether or not it has value or not. For a lot of people, they get excited about tracking down the missing piece of that set. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know we were talking a little bit about the difference between, do you use it or not? For my nephew with tennis shoes, with sneakers, he collects them, but he wouldn't wear them. For a lot of wine collectors, they have a lot of bottles. They might not touch them forever or for a really long time. It's a special occasion. Yeah. For record collectors, generally, we want to use them. But for a lot of people with collectible dolls, they like looking at them, knowing that they have them. Do they use them? I would guess probably not. They might not want to touch them. They want to keep them in pristine condition.
I get this question actually a lot from especially new people who are getting back into it or newer collectors. If they come in, they may start with the idea that I'm going to get this as some financial investment. Okay, well, first off, it's not gold or silver or anything like that. But yes, some records can, and we've talked about it before, some can be insanely valuable, but it's really only going to be worth what someone's willing to pay. But it comes back down to it, too. The question I get is, I'm buying this sealed, rare record from you. What should I do? Should I hold on to it? Should I keep it sealed? And my advice is always, well, you're buying a record to play it. Enjoy it. I once did some trading with a guy that comes in maybe once every other year. I see him very, very occasionally, but he's a big Rush collector. So he came in to look at a few of the more collectible Rush items that I had. I had some promo interview LPs that he really, really wanted. And I probably, in retrospect, would have kept them, but I also really, really wanted a first pressing of Snakes and Arrows, one of the later Rush albums. And he said, well, I've only got about 10 sealed ones left, so I don't know if I could, only if I could part with one. I'm like, well, are you kidding me, man? So we wheeled and dealed, and he gave me one of his sealed Snakes and Arrows albums from Rush in exchange for a couple of my really, really unique promotional records from them. And the next time I saw him, he was like, "Oh, wow. What'd you do with that Snakes and Arrows?" I was, "Well, I opened it up." He goes, "I thought you had one." I did. I had a reissue of it, the 180 gram, or the 200 gram was the reissue, I'm sorry. He says, "But you already had an open one. Why did you open that one?" Well, because I wanted to listen to it. I'm not going to sit on a record and leave it sealed if I'd really want to listen to it. And Steve, we've talked before too. We've known collectors that their specific niche is collecting sealed albums.
Yeah.
And at first you're looking at that saying, well, what is the purpose of this if you're not going to listen to them? I think that's a really simplistic way of saying, I'm a music lover. I would be enjoying it. Why aren't you enjoying yours? But maybe they get a different type of enjoyment out of that.
Right. And it could be, again, financial purpose. They may want to resell it to someone else down the road, or just knowing that they have all this in pristine condition. They may have other versions of it that they actually listen to and enjoy, but just knowing that they have all these, sealed up tightly. People collect for different reasons.
And you can still listen to it online. You can go up, you can pull it online, you can still hear it, and then say, and I have a sealed one.
And I think we mentioned this a while back too, that talked about these, the Gen Zers, or what's after Gen Z. I'm losing track now of where we are, the younger generations. But a lot of, I read an article that said a lot of these younger people are buying vinyl records and opening them up, but they don't own turntables. And now you'd say, now why would that be? Well, the answer to that is that they're listening to these albums on Spotify, but they still want that physical thing to hold on to. They want to open it up. They want to feel the record. They want to see the liner notes. Even if they don't have the means to listen to it, they're enjoying the vinyl, but still enjoying the music.
And it looks cool.
Oh, it does.
Yes,
So speaking of younger listeners, over the holidays when I was back in Cleveland, I went. Well, first, my wife and I and my daughter, we purchased our 13-year-old niece a turntable. She was really excited about that because she's a big Taylor Swift fan. And so we purchased her the turntable, and then she immediately went and got the newest Taylor Swift album, Midnights, or the newest other than the re-releases, at least with Midnights. And she put it on immediately and was really excited to look through all the packaging and the lyrics. And I think there's little stories about each song there. So she was really appreciating the vinyl experience. And then I took my niece and my daughter and one of my nephews. We went to a used record store. They have new records also. And we all made some purchases. So that was kind of a fun bonding moment. But yeah, for my niece, she wanted to be able to play a record because she knows that Taylor Swift is into vinyl and that she's encouraged it. And Taylor Swift was a record store day ambassador a couple of years ago. So I think regardless of whether you're a fan of Taylor Swift or not, she's definitely helped to introduce younger generations to vinyl. It was a movement that was already taking off, and I think she's helped to make it even bigger.
No argument there. This is from the record store owner perspective. That brings some people in. The idea, though, that maybe the celebrities and the fact that these artists are still embracing vinyl, I think is helping a great deal as well. You get collectors of big names. You mentioned Elton John, but then Henry Rollins is another one who's got a big vinyl collection as well. Is there some, I want to be like these people, like you mentioned with Taylor Swift?
Right. A lot of times it is emulating celebrities. Celebrities have influence in so many different ways. Look at all the people that are now watching NFL games who didn't care a year ago. Speaking of Taylor, celebrities are influencers. And so, a lot of times for young people, especially if they know that this celebrity is doing XYZ, I want to wear that. I want to have that kind of perfume, or I want to wear that shirt, or I want to get in that trend also. I don't want to miss the boat. I want that Stanley mug or whatever it is.
Now, the study of psychology, you're looking at how people think and how people view and what people do. If someone is new to collecting, and I've seen this in a couple of cases with customers that have come in here, they don't know how much, whether they're going to put a toe in the water on collecting or they jump in without even realizing what they're into in this case. Is there some way that behaviors could be tempered, or is it really just kind of come down to self-control in some cases?
Well, like Steve was saying, partly it's a practical thing. How much money do we have? So when I was younger and I didn't have a whole lot of money, I bought a lot more used albums. I worked in a record store. I'd get the promo versions. I won stuff on the radio, so I did what I could to get albums for less money. So it's up to the individual. How much money do they have to spend? Are they do they want any version that's available? And if so, used records are great for that. Or do they need a pristine, new, unused version of it? I like what you were saying about greatest hits. I think that's a great way to get introduced to a lot of artists. And then you can find out, okay, so I like these 3 songs by this group. Listen to the greatest hits. Nah, maybe it was just those 3 songs. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm good now. Or other times, you're like, wow, I like all this. Okay, I should get more by them. So it really comes down to the individual, how much they want to, like you said, dip their toe in the water, or do they want to dive straight into the deep end with it.
It's how and then we just keep evolving. Both you and I, our collections have evolved. I've gone from now, I want a quality press. I want an original press. But I'm older, and I can afford that now, where when I was younger, I couldn't. Right. Well, a lot of originals you could afford back in the 80s because they were all for $1 in the bargain bins. So now, well, it's a whole different world out there. And it's just, the journey continues to change, and as we get older oftentimes. I know my collecting, my whole experience has changed, and now it's not about a lot of records. It's just about records that really make me excited.
I found the same thing for me also, as I've over the past few years, I've actually whittled down my collection a little bit here and there. I just brought in some used records with Jim earlier in the month, and I'm not getting rid of everything. I'm not there yet, but I have noticed that I'm getting rid of more stuff, and I'd rather have things that are more more meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And you're going through that now with the packing.
Mm-hmm. I am. As I look at each band, I'm pulling out stuff, putting it on the turntable. Do I really want to listen to this? Is this really good? Oh, I do like that. I'll put it back in, and I'll listen to it maybe 5 years from now. But, there is some stuff I'm pulling out. You're right. Nope, I'm just not going to probably play this again.
Right. The 20-year-old version of you may have loved it, but the 20-plus some years version of you, it may not resonate as much as it once did.
Yes.
We change over time. I think a lot of our preferences are shaped when we're young, teen years, early 20s, but over time, some things stand the test of time. Some things, it's no longer meaningful to us.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I'm not outside the realm of weirdness if I decide that I want to be a They Might Be Giants completist.
Nope.
Or if I need to buy a 6th version of Dark Side of the Moon.
If you're breaking into They Might Be Giants homes, then we worry.
John and John. Well, I did see them in concert a couple of years pre-pandemic down in Detroit. So,
excellent.
And that was kind of cool. Didn't buy any merch, though. Maybe I should have at that point. Although I do have a TMBG t-shirt I bought from their website. If you stop and think about folks that have some sort of compulsive tendencies, one of the more dangerous aspects of this comes into mind with gambling and the ease of use to reach gambling,
right,
whether it be online or any number of casinos that pepper, at least here in Michigan as well, just about everywhere. Is that a behavior that can affect collecting in a negative way?
It could. So let me first touch on the terms themselves. So we've got obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. An obsession is something you can't stop thinking about. And a compulsion is something that you can't stop doing. I wouldn't think in general that collecting would fall into the same category. So compulsions tend to be more like picking at your skin or gambling potentially. I can see there is a connection there. They're maybe in the same general zone, but I don't know exactly if there are collectors who fall into the OCD category. There may very well be.
Maybe in the way that they file their records, you could say, "Oh no,
yes,
that has to go there. You have to put that with this."
Absolutely. So one of the things when I talk about obsessive compulsive disorder with my students, to me, one of the big qualifiers are the words "have to." So if you have organized your shirts in your closet a certain way, and then we were to take one of the shirts and move it, could you get on with your day, or does it have to be there with all the other short sleeve shirts?
So when somebody puts a record back in the wrong spot,
yes,
it doesn't go there.
If that's all you can think about and you have to return it to its original location, yes, that sounds like it's in the vein of OCD.
Okay, that makes
absolutely
sense.
I used to be able to eyeball my collection and wait. Someone moved an album out. I could tell someone moved it out. Eventually it got too big. It didn't matter anymore. But
So Steve and I have talked before about how I really don't like the term vinyl resurgence. It's not really something that I think yes, it's happening, but for some of us, it's never really went away. But collecting as a whole is something that is just it's very commonplace for us, isn't it?
Right, yeah. Collecting is a fairly common behavior. I've seen estimates putting it at about 40% of American households that collect something. I saw another source suggesting that a global estimate is maybe closer to about 1 in 3 households. So a lot of people have some kind of collection. Again, whether it's wine or dolls or stamps or coins or vinyl.
Then the question remains is, does this eventually become something that will financially pay itself off, or is it just something you have until you don't have things anymore? You say, this is now my children's responsibility.
Yeah.
Right, and when it gets passed on to the kids, are they going to keep it because it reminds them of their parents, or are they going to say, you know what, I'm ready to cash in now, and I can take these back to a used record store, or I can sell them online to other people who have this passion, who might enjoy it more than I do, and I can also make money too.
That's something you don't want to think about, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say for my children, I got rid of the shot glass collection, so that's all gone. The little teaspoon collection, that seemed to be something you had to have in the 80s. That's gone now. And so we've been slowly throwing out all these stupid things that we collected, when we were traveling, go, well, we should get that. Yeah, we'll collect those. Okay. And yeah, they're all gone.
You had baseball cards at one point, too,
I
didn't you?
had 500,000 baseball cards.
Wow.
And there was, as you said, the excitement of completing a box set, especially as you're out there trying to find that individual. 4 cards away from a 1969, but
Wow.
oh, well, flood. That's the way it goes.
Came close to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I did. I was almost at the peak.
You could see it.
The summit of Everest was just in sight, and you ran out of oxygen.
Yes. He's dead.
So what do you think? Why do we collect? Why do you collect? If you're on our Facebook page, head over there and leave some comments. On the YouTube channel, do the same thing. I still haven't figured out if we can leave comments on Spotify. I guess I should really look into that.
I should probably go into Spotify and try it.
See what happens. We can go from there. But let us know what you think. And we've talked before about the types of collector you are. And I guess if I have to go back in retrospect, I'll admit it to you now, Steve. Maybe I'm going to be a They Might Be Giants completist. I'm already there with Rush. Yeah. There's like one Grail Rush item that I'm looking for yet, and that's that original mix of Vapor Trails. I'm getting close with the Floyd, but now I'm starting to concentrate on Floyd bootleg live ones, which is another rabbit hole I'm not too comfortable going down because that is an endless pool to dive into.
Yeah.
They Might Be Giants is a little more finite, but at least I have an end in sight on that. But then it comes down to, it's like, okay, I've got all of these. Now I better make sure I'm enjoying them.
Dave, I don't know. We're both going to be having a lot of problems with this Dark Side of the Moon thing. On how many Dark Side of the Moons is healthy to have? And, when do you just finally say, no more? I am done.
It'll be up to Pink Floyd. They're going to come up with a holographic projection version next to the prism that comes. Oh, no. Dave, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say I can touch real briefly on definitions of abnormality.
All right.
For whatever that means. So I talk about this in my classes too. There's 3 main definitions. Hopefully I can remember all 3. So number 1, if you do something that most people don't do. If you have most of the They Might Be Giants albums, if you have most of the Pink Floyd, so in that sense, you are abnormal. Second, we look for, is it causing you distress? Does it upset you? I think the answer for both of you is no, it doesn't upset you. And then the third criteria for abnormality is this. Does it get in the way of healthy, productive, successful functioning? Is it causing you financial distress? Is it causing you, jail time because of whatever your problem is? And it sounds like it's caused a little bit of marital distress, but not a whole lot. I don't know. And it's actually led to a career for you. So It may not meet that criteria, but it does meet the first one, that we're doing something that most people don't do. But that said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're faster than most people are, if you're smarter than most people are, that's a way you can be abnormal, but it's a very good type of abnormal. So if you're abnormal, it's okay to be abnormal.
Thank you.
We love our music, which is where I think this started for all 3 of us. And, wanting to be able to hear more music by the artists that we love, I see that as nothing but a good thing. unless it's interfering with your life.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, what I got out of this was validation.
Yes.
There we go.
I am not a trained therapist. I cannot make a diagnosis, but yes.
I'm going to hop on and find the rest of those TMBGs right now.
Yes. You take care of that. I'm just going to buy every Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, and then every day just shake my head and go, what am I doing?
Well,
what am I
the
doing?
good thing about this is, and again, air quotes with the vinyl resurgence, should the type of collection that we bring in ever begin to bore us or decide maybe this isn't it, you can move them out and move them on to somebody else.
Cash in the chips.
Yes, somebody else that wants to collect all of those will hopefully be there for you.
Exactly. Yep. That's what's, eventually that's what I will do as I'm getting older. I look at that more and more, and when do I start to do more of that and start moving it out?
It's a tough decision to make, though, because you've invested so much time, energy, and quite frankly, love into putting these together.
Yes, very, very difficult.
All right, well, cool. Dave, thank you very much for being here with us today. We had a great time talking about this. And again, I think I feel a little bit more validated knowing that it's okay to get this next Dark Side that comes out.
Yes.
I didn't even talk about when, did we? That comes out in April 5th. So we've got a little bit. That being said, I've already started getting messages because I did put it in the upcoming video early to say, this is something you should keep an eye on. I got at least 2 or 3 saying, damn it, Jim, I want that too.
There we go.
We'll get you a copy though too, Steve. We'll make sure you get one.
Okay.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right, Dave Baskind has been with us here today. Dr. Dave Baskind, a professor of psychology teaching at Delta College here in the Mid-Michigan area for quite some time, and a record collector, and I think that's what makes you even cooler.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
Steve, next week, our road trip is coming up pretty soon.
It is.
I have to go double check the date on that.
Yeah.
But we'll figure this out as we go on. But you have been listening to 2 guys talking about records. Today, 3 of us. And again, big thanks to Dave for coming in and weighing in on the psychological aspect of collecting. Until next week, you folks have a great one. Thanks, Steve.
You too, Jim. Have a great one. Thank you, Dave.
My pleasure.